On a crisp Sunday morning in mid-March 1990, the city of Augusta, Georgia, was waking up to its usual rhythm, the kind of rhythm that lulls people into the comforting belief that nothing unusual ever happens here. Birds chirped along the avenues, neighbors exchanged brief greetings over fences, and the scent of brewing coffee mingled with the faint aroma of blooming azaleas. In an apartment complex tucked away from the main streets, two 15-year-old sisters, Dannette Millbrook and Jeannette Millbrook, stirred awake, their twin beds side by side, sun rays glancing across their innocent faces. Born on April 2, 1974, these African-American twins were inseparable in every conceivable way. Though fraternal and not identical, they shared the kind of bond that siblings often yearn for but rarely attain, a quiet understanding, an unspoken agreement to always be together, to navigate the world hand in hand. That morning, as was their routine, they prepared for church. Their mother, Louise, moved among the kitchen, humming softly, watching as their daughters dressed in neat clothes, tying their hair into shoulder-length jerry curls, the kind that bounced with every movement, reflecting a care and pride that mirrored her own. There was laughter over spilled cereal, gentle admonitions for tardiness, and the warm comfort of shared rituals, the ordinary minutiae of life that would make their sudden disappearance all the more jarring. The walk to church was unremarkable. The girls held hands lightly, chatting about music, friends, and the small dramas of teenage life, unaware that this ordinary Sunday would become the pivot of a tragedy that would ripple through decades. At church, they joined the congregation, sitting quietly as the service unfolded. They were respectful, attentive, the kind of teenagers who didn't attract attention by acting out, who blended into the pews with a natural grace. Afterwards, as the congregation dispersed, they lingered to greet friends, exchange smiles and waves, lingering in the warmth of routine. Following church, they returned home for a quick lunch. The clatter of dishes, the aroma of home-cooked food, the small comforting conversations that tether one to family. Yet beneath the surface of that sunny afternoon, subtle currents were shifting. The family had recently moved to a new apartment, slightly farther from their school and neighborhood familiarities. A walk that had once been brief now stretched longer, threading through streets they had only begun to recognize. By mid-afternoon, the twins decided to step out. The errands were simple. They needed bus fare to get to school the following week, and a brief stop at a local store to pick up snacks. First, they visited their godfather's home, walking the blocks they had known since childhood, stepping over familiar cracks and uneven sidewalks, their laughter echoing lightly in the air. They received the money, exchanged greetings, and set off again, this time towards their cousin's home. There they asked if the cousin would walk home with them, a request made casually, as siblings do, but the cousin's mother refused, citing the encroaching darkness and the worry that the girls might face dangers on the street. Undeterred, the twins proceeded to their older sister's home, hoping perhaps that she might accompany them, but she was busy indoors with her newborn child. They stayed for a brief 15 minutes, chatting softly, and then stepped back out into the afternoon sunlight, once again alone. Their steps carried them towards a small convenience store at the corner of 12th Street and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. This store was familiar. They had stopped here countless times before to buy chips, soda, candy, or just to peer curiously at the racks of small trinkets. The clerk, a woman who had seen them many times, greeted them with a casual nod, noting nothing unusual, unaware that she was about to witness the last confirmed sighting of the girls. The twins paid for their snacks, the coins clinking lightly in the register, the casual conversation about prices and flavors blending into the ambient murmur of the store, and then, in a moment that would become seared into memory, the twins exited the store and simply vanished. The clerk glanced back after a brief distraction, and where once there had been two familiar faces, there was nothing. No footprints, no indication of direction, no sign that they had walked away. Just absence. A white van had been seen following them earlier along the streets, a detail they had mentioned casually to their mother, but now, in the unrelenting rhythm of the city, that detail seemed ominous in hindsight, a shadow stretching across a bright afternoon. Hours passed, and the girls did not return home. Their mother, Louise, grew uneasy, the ordinary worry of a parent shifting rapidly into fear. She and another family member walked the streets, calling their names, peering down alleys, scanning wooded lots and canals that crisscrossed the city, hearts pounding with the unnameable dread that comes when routine fractures and refuses to heal. When the night deepened, she contacted the Richmond County Sheriff's Office, only to be met with the frustrating bureaucratic insistence that she wait 24 hours before filing a missing persons report. Every tick of the clock became unbearable. Every hour felt like a betrayal. The normalcy of the Sunday afternoon had dissolved into a vacuum of anxiety, stretching into the long, uncertain night. When the official investigation finally began, it was marred by assumptions and errors. A single incident report was filed in those early days, and the twins were prematurely labeled as runaways, a classification at odds with their history and character. The detective assigned to the case seemed to see the disappearance as a minor diversion, failing to treat the situation with the urgency it deserved. Records were incorrect. Their surname was entered as Millbrooks, Jeanette's middle name misspelled, small yet consequential details lost in a fog of negligence. The case, barely a year after the disappearance, was formally closed with a reasoning that seemed almost cruel. Once the twins reached 17, they could legally choose not to return home, and thus, in the eyes of the authorities, no further action was required. For the family, this reasoning was inconceivable, a callous dismissal of their daughter's existence and safety.
Years turned into decades. In 2013, the case was reopened, prompted by the family's persistent advocacy and growing public awareness through podcasts, media attention, and community engagement. Yet, despite renewed scrutiny, the girls remained missing. No confirmed sightings, no clues that led to solid evidence. The theories proliferated. The possibility of a deliberate abduction by a serial predator active in the area, the haunting notion that a white van might have been the vehicle of their captor, whispers of family or neighborhood connections, and the lingering, painful question of whether institutional failures had allowed their disappearance to go unaddressed for far too long. The girls themselves were vividly remembered by those who knew them. Jeanette slightly shorter, with a small scar near her navel and shoulder-length jerry curls, weighed around 125 pounds. Dannette, taller and slightly more robust, shared the same scar and hairstyle, both adorned with pierced ears, their teenage appearance unremarkable, yet indelibly familiar to those who loved them. Both were high school freshmen, engaged in the normal concerns of adolescence, with no history of running away, no known threats, simply two sisters walking through their world hand in hand. The simplicity of their lives made their disappearance all the more incomprehensible. Every year that passed without answers was a reminder of the fragility of certainty and the cruelty of unanswered questions. Their mother, Louise, bore the daily weight of uncertainty, the unimaginable stress of wondering whether her daughters were alive, in danger, or worse. Siblings and extended family felt the emptiness keenly. Graduations came and went, birthdays passed, and holidays were celebrated with two chairs conspicuously empty, their absence a silent, enduring presence at every family gathering. The sisters' laughter, their companionship, the small rituals of teenage intimacy, all were frozen in time, memories preserved only in photographs, recollections, and the aching hearts of those left behind. Speculation grew in the absence of answers. Could they have run away, even together? Highly unlikely, given their youth, the medical needs of Dannette, and the lack of preparation for a long-term absence. Could a serial predator have been involved? The region had its share of criminal elements, some active in targeting vulnerable teenagers. The memory of a white van lurking near the girl's path lingered like a shadow, a chilling possibility that they might have been lured into a vehicle under benign pretenses or forced by unknown hands. Could someone in their own community have played a role? A neighbor, an acquaintance, a family connection? None of these paths yielded proof, and yet each carried the same weight of possibility, haunting the minds of those desperate for closure. The years offered no relief. Age-progressed photographs were created, projecting what Dannette and Jeannette might look like in their 30s, 40s, and eventually their 50s. A haunting vision of lives lived or lost in parallel with time that moved relentlessly for everyone else. The Richmond County Sheriff's Office continues to list the twins as missing persons. The case officially open, a small glimmer of hope amidst decades of silence. Friends, community members, and online advocates maintain websites and social media groups, ensuring that the memory of the twins is kept alive, their story shared widely to prevent it from fading into obscurity. The human dimension of this tragedy cannot be overstated. These were not merely missing persons statistics, they were young lives abruptly severed from the world they knew, their routines shattered, their futures uncertain. The family's ongoing fight to preserve their daughter's memory, to demand accountability, to push for answers, reflects the enduring power of love, the refusal to let bureaucracy, indifference, or the passage of time dictate the narrative. Every flyer, every post, every podcast appearance is a thread connecting the past to the present, a plea that the story of Dannette and Jeannette not be forgotten, and that someday, somehow, the silence might be broken. The disappearance of Dannette Latonia Millbrook and Jeannette Latrice Millbrook serves as a stark reminder of how quickly ordinary life can fracture, how the mundane steps of a Sunday afternoon, walking to the store, chatting with family, buying snacks, can become the final acts of a story left unfinished. Their tale is one of loss, uncertainty, and the relentless pursuit of answers. It is a story of sisters bound together by blood and love, vanishing into thin air, leaving a community and a family to grapple with absence and unanswered questions for decades. And so, on that quiet corner in Augusta, where two teenage sisters were last seen, the echoes of their footsteps may have faded, but the longing for resolution, the questions that refuse to die, and the love of those left behind remain insistent, relentless. A testament to lives interrupted and a family's undying hope that one day Dannette and Jeannette will be found, and the story, at last, will find its conclusion.